Coming to you from a portable microphone, this is Don't Get Me Started. This is a conversation about advertising. And here is your host, freelance creative director and creative circus department head, Dan Balser.
I'm going to start this one now. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for coming back to listen to this again, because I was just talking before I said we're starting about last week, and I'm assuming that last week you heard a conversation with Elizabeth Cauvel. If you did not hear a conversation with Elizabeth Cauvel, it's because I dropped the ball on it, and if you did hear it, and I hope you didn't notice that I felt off last episode. I feel like the rhythm was weird. I was tired. You know what I think? My theory is that I had a virus that didn't reveal itself with a fever or symptoms other than just like lethargy and a lack of attention. And I feel bad for Elizabeth because it was awkward. It was awkward for me. I love her. I thought it was great. We also had Carrie, their human resources manager from MRY, was here, and it was. I feel like I let you guys down, but you came back. You're here. You're either here because you have faith in my ability to recover, you didn't notice, or you just fucking love Ashley Milhollin, and that's the camp that I'm just going to soundly stand in right now. Loving Ashley Milhollin, loved her as a student, love her as a professional. Just came out of a forum where Ashley was here with Kate Lukowitz. Did I say it right? I hope I said her name right. And just polished as all get out. And we're talking about someone who's been out of school for 2.5 years and someone who's been out for just a number of months, and already have great advice, already have some really, really, really great work. Ashley, like I said, Ashley.
That's so weird.
I'm going to refer to her by her name, which is Mill. Graduated from the Creative Circus at some point at the end of 2014. I want to say it was December.
Yep.
At that point, she was at Wexley School for Girls, hired to work on an account that was quickly lost. They were kind enough to let her set up shop and hunt for work. Our good friends up at Wexley out in Seattle, Washington. And then she was at Deutsch for a little over 2 years. I'd love to talk about some of the work from Deutsch, some Taco Bell work and some other fun, big budget coolness. And then March 2017, moves south. Wait a minute, Deutsch is already in LA.
Yeah.
Moved across town to Zambezi.
Moved east, which is lame.
Moved east.
To Culver City for Zambezi.
Inland a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
The office is dope. The area of town's not as fun.
The office is the coolest thing I've ever seen, with a giant shark's jaw over the bar. Which is so badass.
It's the office from Silicon Valley season 3. So we just took over that office after the season was filmed.
So cool. Welcome back.
Hi.
So you were here to visit, but now you're here as a guest of the school. How does it feel to stand up in front of a forum and be like legitimately respected by awestruck eyes?
I don't know about the second part, but in general, it just feels fucking incredible.
That's cool.
I'm sorry to repeat myself, but I know we're on the podcast, but I have such an affection and such a deep, unabiding love for Creative Circus. It feels incredible to stand up there again. Because the last time I was there, it was graduation.
Wow.
And I was saying, we had fun, y'all.
Yeah.
It was good.
So I failed to mention just a second ago, Zambezi is an Ad Age 2016 Small Agency of the Year, about 70 people. And I you know what? Unlike last episode, where I just dropped the ball and it shattered all over the floor, I actually have some talking points. I wouldn't call these questions as much as conversation starters.
Great.
Not like you and I really need conversation starters. I don't think if we're just sitting together, we're going to end up yammering on.
I know.
Let's talk about, first of all, you're fresh enough in your career to remember what it was like coming to school here, not coming to visit school. So talk to me a little bit about just the adjustments, if there were any, coming out of this environment, going into either Wexley or Deutsch, and what it was like to have to navigate the things you weren't expecting or whatever, what surprises there were, just adjustments in general to the real world as it is.
I think adjustment-wise, like I said, this is the opportunity, this is the place where you get to have the most fun. There are no clients, there are no budgets. The only one that's in control is you. And then when you get out of school, you have this great foundation of good thinking, but not everyone really trusts that foundation yet because you're a baby, essentially.
Wait, you mean you don't trust it, or the client and agency don't trust it?
Client and agency don't trust it yet. So that's sort of why they delegate these like smaller tasks to you that you feel kind of like you want to blow out, but you're not quite sure how. You don't want to step on any toes. And I think the biggest thing for me, like I talked about with Forum, was learning how to work off an existing brief. I think that was really, really difficult because, like I was saying, it's at school you're given this great foundation of like strategy thinking and big idea thinking, and when you get out into the real world, someone has already done that. That's not your job yet. So it's, what did I say?
So when you say an existing brief, you mean an existing campaign.
Yes.
Right? You're coming in working off stuff that someone's already done work for. You just have to do more off of that.
You have to go in, and I mean, this would be dope to work on. You have to go in and work on Snickers and think of something that hasn't been done yet, which might be hard because it's a long-standing, really celebrated campaign.
Within the campaign, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, done by friends of Lisa's.
I completely believe it.
Peter Kane and John, what's his last name? John Arena.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, at BBDO. Yeah, and this is how small the industry is. So when we were in New York, Lisa was at BBDO New York, and she had these two guys that were juniors, John and Peter, and she loved them. She just talked about it. And I remember her 30th birthday. They were at the 30th birthday. They're just this really cool junior creative team. Now they're the creative directors on You're Not Yourself When You're Hungry.
That's amazing.
And it's the coolest thing. So was that like a frustration? Was it hard for you to like internally as a creative buy into the concept of some other campaign, or was it just feeling limiting, or was it like, how was that an adjustment? Because I said this out loud when you were informed that every single professional creative has had to work on someone else's campaign at some point. I've done it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in school, I was so hell-bent on getting the juiciest, most interesting, strategic, never-before-seen way of thinking at something, and that really influenced my work. And it's just like, it's starting from a different starting point. It's not really a negative or a positive. It's just sort of like your brain wants to go down this, your brain works like a road that you drive down a lot. And it's like, my brain wants to start driving down the road of concepting first. That's how my brain knows to start creatively. And so it's just kind of hard to steer the car and be like, wait, nope, different road. Like, let's go this way.
Right. There's a great story from Mike Egan, who was trying to get into Wyden and was obsessed over the Chevy campaign. And he was writing spots, sort of really getting into the sort of the DNA. Actually, he was an intern. I think he took an internship there and was kind of like reverse engineering the voice and tone of this campaign. And then someone needed scripts written, and he just banged it, like nailed it, because I think. I don't want to talk for Mike, but for myself, I feel like the limitations liberate creativity. In other words, if you're forced to do something in a way, it takes the energy, it kind of harnesses the energy into a more direct light. Whereas when you have an open road sometimes, even though it's really exciting and you can come up with different options and it feels more of an exploration, you're exploring a little more deeply, and I think you can end up with some really cool, unique executions within an existing campaign. Easy for me to say, sitting here.
I think that's the difference between being a student and being a professional.
Right.
There it is. I mean, as a student, you say, this is really fucking cool. I've never seen this before. Let's make a couple things and show how cool it is.
Right.
As a professional, you say, wow, they've done that 800 times before. They've already thought of these first thoughts, and you have to challenge yourself to go deeper into there and get the real stuff out. And it's just a different part of it for me personally, just like a different part of my creativity. It's just a different sort of well I had to tap at first. Not intensely. I just thought it was a good piece of advice that I hadn't thought about.
It feels different too, because I remember my second job I replaced my first campaign that I ended up putting in my book was a campaign that already existed, but coming up with
Wait, what?
Yeah, I got there and it was already there. They had already the team that created the work left, but the campaign lived on. So my partner and I were creating ads for a campaign that we didn't invent. But it was just as fulfilling of a feeling to come up with something that fit that template.
Oh, yeah.
It was really, really cool. It's like, well, if we did this, that's exactly right, but it's also a new way of thinking about it. It was really, really, really cool.
The satisfaction of answering the brief correctly it's almost more satisfying than when you're a student and you're like, that's a really funny idea and it's strategic. It's like when you finally answer something within those parameters, it's awesome.
Can I say something else about that? Like, I'm talking about honing sort of the light, but one of the things that you had talked about was asking Andy Pearson at Deutsch to work on anything for Taco Bell. So you worked on this taco emoji piece, and I wanted to say this out loud in the forum. I got to shut up in the forum.
No, I like it.
This is my. I shouldn't use that forum. This should be my forum. And I think that you or Kate or someone had talked about how it was great to find this idea. I don't think there's a huge. This is not to me any disrespect for what it is. It's an okay idea. The thing, lives, thrives, survives, and succeeds because of what I always talk about manual labor, of moving 1,000 gravel stones across the parking lot, of writing hundreds of them. How many guys did you guys come up with? So you have to figure out, okay, here's what it is. That wasn't that hard to come up with. Now we got to roll up our sleeves and come up with, if somebody types in Taco Bell plus a taco plus another emoji, they get sent back this really cool GIF.
Instantly.
Right? Instantly. So now we've got to sit down in a room for hours and look at every single one. What would it be? What would that? And that to me is, like, I think you can look at that two ways, right? And here I go yammering on. You can
No.
It's a drag. It sucks, or it's like really, really, really fun and funny.
It's
like joke writing.
What I like about Taco Emoji Engine is that it's really simple for the user and for the audience, but it was really fucking hard for us.
Yeah.
What I like about it is there was no app to download. There was no bullshit microsite. It's literally in a platform you already use. It's Twitter. We worked with Twitter to build something in the platform for Taco Bell. And I actually don't think it was like the greatest idea of all time, but I think it definitely...
All right, so...
Definitely...
Hold on a second. Mil, go over there. Mil, get up for a second. Go look at the door. Open the door. Open the door. What's on the door?
It says recording in progress, do not enter.
Recording in progress, do not enter. And there's a sign, right? It's a round, produce. Yeah, lock it.
Lock it?
God.
Damn kids.
Dixon Pruitt made me a sign. He designed a circular sign with Velcro on the back of it. He cut a perfect circle in foam core. He installed a self-adhesive piece of Velcro to the door and a self-adhesive piece of male and female on the other side of the aforementioned circular piece of foam core. That is now adhered to the door of the room in which we're recording. And again...
How many times has this happened?
Numerous.
Oh my God.
Numerous times.
I feel like that's a forum, like, when you start it, you're like, welcome this person, and for fuck's sake, don't come in the room. God damn it.
All right.
Maybe not with that many cursing words.
All right, let's change subjects.
Sorry.
So, I wrote down all kinds of notes to have this conversation. So, without being too, like, ass-kissy, which I want to do on the cast, first of all, I'm just so grateful that people are willing to do this with me, so thank you. I think of you as a very smart woman. A very smart, sort of observant person who is sort of quick-witted, understands sort of the context of the room, can read the temperature pretty well, understands business, has some design chops for a writer, great command of the language, all around pretty much badass creative. How do you deal with morons or fools? How have you adjusted to having to deal with the occasional speed bump in the process?
I think I'm sorry, I was laughing the whole time. I think at first it's really hard because when you're a junior and you can be like, I can clearly see the problem and I can clearly solve it, and you're clearly just being an idiot, and I can't, and by my station or whatever, like, the problem can't get solved, even though it's so stupidly simple. I think you have to unclench a little bit and just let stuff roll off you. I know right now it's like you're mired in it, and it's part of your life, and you have to realize, like, at the end of the day, like, you're going to see idiots everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like getting in traffic in LA. Like, I had a really bad problem driving where I get terrible road rage because everyone's super aggressive and, like, cut you off all the time, and it would piss me off. I'm like, it's not fair. Well, that's just, you have to lie back and accept a little bit that, like, fucked up stuff happens and let it roll off you. Like, that is the most zen way I can handle it. Right. That and drinking a lot of bourbon.
Right, you can't handle it, though. I get the sense that you're just talking yourself into it right now. Or have you gotten better at it?
I've gotten better at it. Dan and I talked a lot. Dan was like, dude, I can't listen to any more venting. He's like, right. For me, I have to let it off a little bit.
Right, the same way.
Like, I have to get it out. It's like poison. Right. Versus for him, it makes it worse.
Right, so Dan might be like my wife. So if I complain to her about anything, she tends to kind of, like, absorb it a little bit. Like, it's tough. Like, I can't. She's not the person that necessarily that I can complain to that kind of stuff about.
Precisely. You sort of need a good venting system, and the good news is, in advertising, most people know who the shitty people are, so you can find someone to vent about. Like,
I think I've used this exact analogy on the podcast before, but, like, road rage is real, especially in Atlanta and LA. But, like, in New York, I never felt that because once you walk down those steps into the subway, you're in the system.
Yeah.
So you kind of give in to the fact that you're in the system now. So why don't we do this? You know, the steering wheel creates the illusion of control.
Yes.
It's a complete illusion. You don't have control. You're in the system now, and the LA freeway system is...
Yes. Okay. My friend said it very nicely when he was like, we just have to accept getting fucked by the long dick of traffic. And I was like, yes, that's exactly it. A little crass, but very true.
No, it's super crass. So let's talk about you and Dan.
Yes.
Let's talk about the advantage, because someone asked this in forum, and I had the pleasure of leaving school with a partner. That it just kind of like marrying someone in your own religion. It just is one problem that you don't have to deal with. So how has your experience been having the known partner, besides what you're talking about, the venting part? Just talk about, have you worked with anyone else, and how long do you guys think you're going to be together? Not to scoop some fucking thing on the podcast, but like talk a little bit about the partnership scenarios.
Well, Dan and I met at school not to be partners. Dan and I actually met on Reddit in the Atlanta thread where he was looking for housing when he was moving here, which was really funny. Mm-hmm. And then we linked up. It just sort of...
What subreddit was this?
Atlanta.
Okay.
It was the Atlanta subreddit. It made sense. But when I met Dan, we have very different tastes a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. But what I like about our partnership is that at the end of the day, we both want the best possible work. And that is just as true today as it was when we were students. Mm-hmm. And what I love about working with him is that we both sort of, even when we're bickering, we know we're bickering about the problem, which is wanting the best work.
Yeah. How does he affect you as a writer? How does he push you as a writer?
Yes. Dan's actually a really good writer, which is actually fantastic if you have a partner who's T-shaped, as they say. Mm-hmm. I can help him lay out stuff and he can help me write. Which is also, they don't talk about this either, really, but when you're starting out and say you're writing TV scripts, you might be writing scripts for 6 months. What's your art director going to do? Sit around and not do anything?
Right.
You got to share that load a little bit, which is why I'm really grateful that Dan can write too.
That's great. Okay, so in your short career so far, what good or bad has surprised you? What did you not see coming?
I did not see coming. What was really weird, and I'm kind of an anxious person. If you can't, I'm sure you know this, but podcast listeners, I'm a little bit of an anxious person. And what freaked me out the first couple of years I was out, first couple months, I guess, is not having a ton to do right away. In school, you always have something to do. You always have a book piece to polish, a resume to think about, a logo to ask about, a piece of copy you can rewrite. Sometimes you have downtime and you don't, they say, well, go ask for work. Well, you may ask for it and they may say, no, we're good. And so you have to go back to your cube and kind of figure out, well, I feel a little uncomfortable because I feel like I don't know what to do with this energy right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that still happen even now at the smaller place?
Not as much. Now I'm kind of I feel like I've mellowed into my job a little bit and I feel confident in being a professional. But when you're young and you feel really eager to prove yourself, it's sort of not do anything feels like going backwards.
That's good though. I think it's good that you have that feeling, because I think that some people could be I don't have anything to do. I'm going to leave early or whatever.
No,
so that's good.
I tell my therapist I think anxiety is a big contributor to my success.
It can be. It's funny you say that, because my father, my siblings and I refer to my father as a poster child for ADD. If he's with you, he's all the way with you, but otherwise it's just nothing sticks, nothing happens. But I think that he's used that as a weapon, because the things that people with ADD can use that as a tool, because you're super focused on what you're into. And the anxiety, I think, I've often thought about this and discussed this. Is it a tool as a fuel? Yes, until it crosses the threshold of affecting your productivity or your mental state.
Yeah, if I'm still going forward with it, it's fine. Mm-hmm. So I'm on board.
So it's a fine line between anxiety and determination or focus or caring. They're kind of related. Little. It's interesting.
Caring, it's a big one.
Yeah. Talk about that.
Well, I just mean, you meet people sometimes, even when you were in school, and you're that's why I also love Dan so much, because Dan and I both care so much about the work. Even when we were lower quarters, we just wanted it to be so good. And it's sometimes you meet people that phone it in, and it's just, that's just people sometimes, but I think caring, really truly caring, will get you so much further, because you implicitly just have this connection to stuff,
Yeah, I think people that are tenacious care longer.
Yeah.
Because there is a moment in a lot of projects when you're tempted to just say, let's just do what they just want us to do.
Yes.
I don't care anymore, because they're not going to like the good stuff. Let's just get it off our desk. Ooh, that's bad. That's really, really bad because you know who you're ultimately screwing over in that scenario, don't you? Your own portfolio, your own career.
Well, even the client too. If the client asks you for something and you don't push it any further, the client will eventually realize they don't need you.
That's happened. I've heard that story.
Yeah, so consider that,
That's
know?
100%. 100%. These are kind of like turning 70 degrees
It's fine.
constantly. What do you think it is that got you hired? Why do you think Wexley likes you, and why do you think agencies have been willing to take you? What is it about you do you think has made you marketable?
I'm not sure. I mean, I go by a very short name, so I guess that's easy. I try to keep my work clear and concise. I don't like to do a lot of upfront. I don't like to do a lot of explaining. I like to let the work speak for itself. I wanted to make sure my book, it's not like the prettiest book, but I think it's easy to navigate. My resume is easy to read. And I also think, like, I just, for better or worse, I have not been afraid to put myself out there. I mean, emailing Cal, I probably, when I was a second quarter, would have been terrified to reach out to him and been like, oh, please give me a job.
Yeah, we're talking about Cal McAllister at Wexley School for Girls, yeah.
Yeah, so, but by seventh quarter, I was like, hey, I'd like to work for you one day, period, the end. Hi, Ted Royer, I love your work at Droga. I'm going to make you a sign at one of the forums. I mean, I think you just have to, I think being unafraid to put yourself out there and being unafraid to take those risks. I mean, hell, I came to Circus from a grad program. I left a master's program to come here.
I didn't know that.
And that was...
What was it?
Advertising.
Okay.
At UT. I didn't tell you the story?
No, I didn't know the story.
Yeah, I was at Austin for 6 months, and I was so bored and eager for creative that I was designing a research paper in InDesign. And I saw Brandy Borsicki's Facebook post for her first Sylvia class, and I thought, I need to be up at 3 a.m. doing creative stuff. I don't need to be doing a research paper in InDesign.
How did you know Brandy?
Brandy and I went to Alabama together.
Okay.
So
She's awesome.
She's great. She lives in LA too.
Cool.
Yeah, so I made that. I took that chance. I took that risk. I was like, I just feel like it's right. I just feel like it's right. You have to just do it.
Very interesting.
Oh,
so
sorry.
speaking of the circus, what do you think you ultimately really learn at ad school? What do you think it is that you took away from here that you learned? Does that question make sense? You're staring at the wall.
I want to have a good, like, poignant answer for this. I'm like trying to think of. Can I just tell you what I took away from circus? Most of all, family. I know that sounds really cheesy. I was saying in the hallway, like, creative circus feels like going to my parents' house, and Atlanta's become my hometown.
That's cool.
No matter where you go in this country, the connections you make here and the skills you learn, you build a family. You can go to New York and meet circus people. You can go to LA and meet circus people. You walk into an agency and you say, are there any circus alumni here? One guy who's like 15 years your senior might be like, oh yeah, you're a circus student?
That's cool.
I just think that's the biggest takeaway for me. You're never alone in this industry because of creative circus.
It's interesting, though, that you say it that way. I think that's a really awesome answer and totally true. So you didn't learn this. You applied what you already had here, right? You kind of came in a little bit savvy, a little bit ready to hit the ground running, a little bit professional focused, and took advantage of it in a way that was bigger than just a skill or an ability or a book or whatever.
Yeah, because there are way better writers than me that didn't go to creative circus who like are just guys who are like, oh, I was a lit major and now I work in advertising, or I was an internet guy and now I work in advertising. But I, coming here and getting that family and being able to work with them so closely with your quarter and learning those relationships, I indescribably awesome.
Cool.
Indescribably priceless.
Great. So you're from Alabama.
Yes.
Spent some time in Texas.
Yes.
Let's talk about, you talked about LA traffic. What's the upside of being and living and working in Los Angeles?
Pretty good salaries for anyone listening because you have cost of living. You also get the beach and the mountains and snow all within an hour of each other. There's also like fun, weird stuff to do. Like I keep going to the cemetery to watch movies like all the time. There's this big Hollywood Forever cemetery and you watch like movies projected on this screen, which I don't think anywhere else really has probably like a really nice, weird cemetery for you to watch movies in. Maybe they do, but that was something.
Not familiar with that, no.
Yeah.
The spirits of the deceased are enjoying watching like Sleepless in Seattle and shit like that.
The Fifth Element. It was great.
That's cool. What kind of projects do you enjoy working on the most? What really gets you excited?
I'm really pumped for the new stuff that we're doing for AutoTrader because it's our first true 360 campaign. So for AngelSoft, we did a bunch of like TV stuff and some social
Amazing
stuff.
work for AngelSoft. Holy crap. Is that on your website?
Yeah.
You guys, if you haven't already been to justcallmemill.com, check out the Angel Soft and grab a tissue or a piece of toilet paper before you start watching those, because they're toilet paper that make you feel.
Oh my God. It was the ask.
Yeah, that's a tough effing ask.
It was hard.
So, Auto Trader talked. So it's full 360 campaign.
It's a full 360 campaign. So 360 that we actually sold through gatefold print.
Wow.
So
that's like 4-page print ad, something like that, right?
It's a 2-page. I'm sorry, gate. Like I think when I say gate, I think about this. Yeah, it's a centerfold. Mm-hmm. Still fun, but whichever that's super exciting to even sell print, and it's like really fun. I can show you afterwards.
Cool.
Really fun print, and we're shooting 2 TV spots in Vancouver, and then we're cutting those down. And I just think the concept is really great, and I'm just. When you get out in the world, you get lucky. What do you say? You get lucky if you see 10% of your final idea in the work. I see 90% of my idea in this work, and so I'm so psyched. So a 360 campaign to like really blow it out.
Knock wood, it's not edited yet.
Oh.
That's really cool. So you talked about seeing movies in a cemetery. What else inspires you? What are you excited about as a consumer? And I don't always ask this question because I think it's a little bit cliche for creatives, but I do think of you as an active consumer.
Oh yes,
of media.
I consume.
Yeah.
Well, I like every other person on Earth who has a pulse. I love Game of Thrones, but
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, but I also started recently getting into anime a little bit, and I'm obsessed with this.
Printed?
Not manga, but
Okay.
So I love this show called Attack on Titan, and
where do you find that?
It's on Adult Swim, but it's also on Hulu.
Okay.
And something about it is just so viscerally different than storytelling. I started with this series called Neon Genesis Evangelion, and it's like the way they tell stories and display emotion is so completely different.
It's so cool.
It's so weird, and I don't know if it's like inherently been like, oh, I think of a script from this, but I think watching that narrative arc has really sort of like imbued me with like a different sort of like way to think about things.
Yeah, that's so on point because it breaks down. It basically informs you that there's another rhythm of communication.
Yes,
that's a really, really important thing. That's really cool, and I think that I have fallen victim, probably so many of us today, that to go back to the stuff that is the same. And I think it's inspiring to get out of it. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Such a weird thing to get into when you're almost 30, but here I am.
You're a baby. So you mentioned a little bit earlier about the fear of getting put on chick brands. Has there been an up or downside in any way to your being a woman?
I think I got very lucky because I'm partnered with a man. I think Dan and I have gotten more opportunities.
Really?
I mean, I have friends who, I won't say names, but there are friends who are female teams who I think are just as talented. I've seen the ideas they present, and they are not getting the same opportunities that we are getting. So as a woman, I feel very fortunate that I work with Dan. I feel very fortunate that I work at an agency that's female owned, and my CCO really, really wants to foster that. But I also get emails all the time that are people like, we loved your emotional work on AngelSoft. We think you'd be great for insert lady brand here. Mm-hmm. And it's like,
yeah, well,
versus also what's really funny.
She did the hand gesture. Like,
you
didn't see the hand gesture.
Oh yeah, sorry, I flipped the bird twice. Also, what's weird though is I've been accused of being too masculine, so I don't know what to do.
That's fucked up, dude.
Yeah, that
is fucked up. Because I was going to say, I think, with all due respect to Dan Rosenberg, whom I have the utmost respect for, I don't know that women are interchangeable. I think that you have ability and a poise and a clarity and a confidence in presentation that I gotta believe puts you at an advantage over quote unquote women who aren't getting the same opportunities. And you talked about this in forum about having the guts to stand up and ask for more and do that kind of stuff. And I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
So it honestly makes me a little sad to hear that you kind of equate the opportunities you've gotten despite your gender. I think that's kind of unfortunate, but I don't want to dwell on it too much. Okay. This is a question I was thinking about because I know how I teach my classes and I know what students have come to expect from their instructors. How often do you get feedback from creative directors that's as clear that how clear is the feedback you've gotten historically from bosses Like, are you given? Is it helpful? Is it mentoring? Is it guidance? Talk a little bit about the difference between what you're getting in school versus in the real world, or from one creative director to another creative director. And does the question make sense?
Oh yes, and I could go on. There are not a lot of. There's only one really, Dan Balzer in the world, and you're very fortunate if you get to have him give you feedback. Because what I like about showing work to you is that you're very good about getting to the heart of the tension and the problem and saying, like, I'm not understanding this because of this reason. Mm-hmm. And you will hear this phrase all the time in the industry where someone's like, I hate to say this to you, but I don't like it and I can't tell you why. And I've heard that before, and you're like, come on.
Just keep pushing.
Keep pushing. Make it pop. And you're like, are you fucking kidding me? But I've been very, very lucky to have just some creative, they have different ways of teaching. My old boss on AngelSoft was great because she was a creative director. She said, hands off, here team, this is your campaign. Mm-hmm. I will give you a little bit of steerage, to make sure it's on brief and the brand's happy, but this is you. You need to handle it.
That's kind of cool when you've had some years under your belt.
Yeah. Melissa Langston Wood.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Awesome.
Best. I love her. Amazing.
Very smart.
Yeah. But when you work with like a new green creative director, which I've done, someone who's really new, it's very hard for them to learn to delegate sometimes and let go of the reins.
Oof.
And so you're having to manage upward feels really weird and not always great. And also like having to essentially be manage someone micromanaging you.
Right, you've got two clients basically.
Yeah, too. And that's really hard. So I think soak up all you can when you're in classes and you're getting that feedback and you're like, if you have that aha moment where someone gives you something where you're like, yes, that makes sense. I understand why this isn't working. Try to tuck that away in your brain because eventually you will be the person giving that feedback and you need to know how to give it.
To yourself, too.
Right. And you also have to look at work that you like, but if it's not working, know why. I saw some work today that I loved, but I was like, I don't know what it's telling me to do or who this is for. It's beautiful and it's well written, but...
arbitrarily.
What do you want me to do?
Right. Very interesting. So... Pretty good stuff from Deutsch. Things are going well. Without throwing an agency or a situation under the bus, what was the impetus to move?
So I actually was very happy at Deutsch. Dan and I were very happy. We were on Taco Bell. Taco Bell's a super fun client. We had just finished wrapping up a year of AngelSoft under our belt. And we got a call from Gavin, my new CCO and partner at Zambezi, and he said, I really like you as a writer. I want to foster that. Just come by the agency and see. And I was like, I'm not sure, Gavin. I don't want really to leave. Zambezi is really small. I haven't heard a ton about it. And he was like, just come by the office. Mm-hmm. All right. So Dan and I take a lunch and we go to the office, this little small office in Culver City. And within 5 minutes, I looked at him and I was like, that's it.
That's awesome.
Because, and I've said this, Zambezi feels like Creative Circus if Creative Circus had a better furniture budget.
Right. It's awesome.
Yeah. It feels like ad school, just with really nice furniture. And that's a feeling that is hard to replicate.
Okay, so you also mentioned in forum, Star Wars, if you don't like it, you're wrong. That was your quote?
Yes.
I get thumbs up all around for that one. Including the prequels?
Oh, God. We don't even talk about the prequels. Come on.
Okay, they don't count.
No.
So I think you'll be proud, and we're going to end this soon, but I think you'll be proud of the fact that I've had my son watch Star Wars.
Yeah.
He's almost 13. In this order, 4, 5, 6...
7.
Then 1, 2, 3 came out. We didn't watch those. Mm-mm. So 7, 8, 9, and Rogue One.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not going to see the prequels.
No. And my dad and I went and saw, my dad and I share Star Wars. Like, that's one of our, he would tell me Star Wars and, Lord of the Rings stories when I was a little kid, when I went to bed for bedtime stories. But if you watch, Rogue One, we went and saw Rogue One and then immediately went and watched, the first one.
That's so cool.
And it's so funny. It's Vader's out in his TIE fighter, and it's you never see... I don't know. It's great. It's great.
Awesome. So cool. So, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would whisper in young Ashley's ear 2.5 years ago at graduation? I mean, we kind of talked about surprises, but is there anything you wish you had known?
Whatever you picture for your future, don't be freaked out if it's not what happens. And I mean that across the board.
When it's not what happens.
Yeah, exactly. My friends and I were actually talking about this recently. My friends in this quarter, some of us don't work in advertising, some of us do something else. And it's I was so rigid about working in Manhattan. I was so rigid about the kinds of stuff I wanted to do. And it's if you just are flexible and also tenacious, it's going to be fine. It's going to be better than fine. It's going to be awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be back.
I think it was good.
Yeah.
I think it was good. So, listeners, if you haven't already checked out Mill's website, it's justcallmemill.com. There's only one L at the end of that URL. There are two buried in the middle in the word call, but it's justcallmemill.com. You can also reach her at her electronic mail is ashley.milhollin@gmail.com. I already have links to her site and to Zambezi up on the Facebook page, which has kind of become the de facto default homepage for the podcast, facebook.com/DGMS podcast. If you haven't liked that, please do. It's free of charge. Everything is automatically served to you in your news feed. You can reach me as always at danspodcast@mac.com. If you're feeling inspired and you enjoy this conversation, leave us a review at the iTunes store. Just search my name in the iTunes store. And that, again, is much appreciated. Mill, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was great. Listeners, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, bye-bye.
Awesome.
There's some stuff to cut out, but not much.
Yeah, you can cut out the long dig of traffic. I'm sorry if that was too much.